Live from London, this is BBC News. Now, Ukraine's President Zelensky says he had an hour-long telephone call with China's President Xi today, the first between the two since Russia's invasion. China says it maintains a neutral stance in the conflict, and President Xi has so far refused to condemn Moscow's invasion. In February, Beijing offered a 12-point paper calling for a political settlement to this crisis. Well, here's our Kyiv correspondent James Waterhouse with more.
Well, Kyiv will see this as a bit of diplomatic progress. Why? Just last month, President Zelensky signalled he wanted to speak to Xi Jinping of China. He even invited him to Kyiv after he met with Vladimir Putin in Moscow. But Xi Jinping decided not to make that extra journey. Nevertheless, we're told it was a long and meaningful phone call. We're not hearing much in terms of detail, but Ukraine is desperate to improve relations with China, a country that to date has refused to condemn Russia's invasion. It's even strengthened its economic ties with Moscow. So while Ukraine will see this as serious progress, there are still huge ideological differences on how to end this war, because what Beijing wants, and what we're told after this phone call, it sees negotiations and talks as the only way out of this conflict. Ukraine sees a military victory as the way out to avoid just that, any kind of political compromise. So politically, we've seen progress today for Kyiv. What difference it will make, we won't know just yet.
Well, that was James Waterhouse in Kyiv. I said before we went to James that, of course, China back in February put forward that 12-point paper calling for a political settlement to the crisis. Really interesting. In the last little while, we've heard from Ukraine's President Zelensky a little more after that call with President Xi, saying no peace at the expense of territorial compromises. Repeating what he has said many times, that no chunks of Ukraine will be given away to Moscow just to secure some sort of peace deal. So that the interesting addition from Ukraine's president in the last little while. Well, that's the view from Ukraine. Let's get a little more from China's perspective. Here's our China correspondent, Stephen McDonald.
We were asked to come to the Foreign Ministry for an unusual evening press conference. We weren't told what it was about, just that it was important. And it wasn't until we entered the room that we found out that Xi Jinping and Volodymr Zelensky had had this phone call. Now, the emphasis from the press briefing today has been that this shows China is impartial. The question was posed, which Western government has been able to have such a call with the leaders of both warring parties? That is, which Western government, we heard the question posed, has been able to speak to Volodymyr Zelensky and Vladimir Putin? And the contrast, of course, is made to Xi Jinping, who now has spoken to both of these leaders. Crucially, we were told that there is to be a high-level Chinese government delegation which will travel not only to Kyiv, but to other countries as a means of pushing forward this peace proposal from China. And we were told that Volodymyr Zelensky welcomes China's proposals for peace and welcomes China's efforts to bring about a diplomatic solution. Now, we asked, of course, how this can be made to occur when both sides in this war have such different positions, and there was no concrete suggestion on that front. Just that peace is the only answer. We were also told that there is a sort of growing wave of enthusiasm internationally for China's peace proposal. Other countries were not mentioned, but just that there is a sort of a broad movement towards backing China's peace plan, and the hope is that this delegation, when it travels to Ukraine at some point in the future, will push that process along.
That was Stephen McDonald. Now,